The critical and box office success of The Iron Claw proves that audiences are ready for more tales about the real-life drama outside the pro wrestling ring. We think these wrestlers' stories are perfect for the silver screen treatment. Chavo Guerrero Jr. has already served as the wrestling coordinator for Glow, Young Rock, and the Iron Claw, receiving accolades for all, so nobody will have to worry about the in-ring work in any film about the Guerreros. And that would be fitting, since technical excellence is what everyone from the family's patriarch, Gory, to his 4 sons, Chavo Sr., Mondo, Hector, and Eddie, all the way down to grandson Chavo Jr. is known for. The Guerrero family story would almost certainly start with Gory, a pioneer of Mexican lucha libre and the inventor of namesake moves like the Gory Bomb. He's also credited with innovating the camel clutch. From there, the film could focus on his sons' training, showcasing the debuts of Chavo Sr., Mondo, and Hector, all between 1970 and 1975, and Eddie much later in 1985. A family feud with the Von Erichs and classic spats with none other than Rowdy Roddy Piper would be very entertaining to see recreated. Eddie's story would ultimately take over, with Latino heat achieving the highest level of success among the family members, but also ending in tragic fashion with his death in 2005. A film about the Guerrero family would be filled with tradition, pride, and honor, not to mention top-notch wrestling action.
Mexico had that golden era, and my dad was part of it.
Though he's best known for commentary, Jim Ross has actually worn just about all the hats in the business outside of being a wrestler. He'd surely offer a unique perspective fit for the big screen. From Mid-South to WCW, his lengthy tenure in WWE, New Japan, AEW, and several shorter stints elsewhere, Ross has just about seen it all. To be able to see it from his point of view would make for great cinema. Anyone who has listened to any of Ross's several podcasts knows that his stories and connections in the wrestling business are second to none. With that in mind, a Jim Ross biopic would probably benefit from his legendary voice serving as the narrator. With a pair of autobiographies already, the source material from the man himself is there. A film could start with his youth in Oklahoma, where Ross was an accomplished athlete himself. It could then follow to him meeting Bill Watts as his wrestling journey began, trials and tribulations in WCW, his long saga in WWE and tenure as head of talent relations, his personal life with his late wife Jan and his children, and sometimes fraught friendships with Stone Cold Steve Austin, Vince McMahon, and Jerry the King Lawler. Dusty Rhodes' appeal to the common man was always his biggest asset. His enduring legacy, other than his family of course, is his contributions to the wrestling industry everywhere he went. Rhodes stuck out thanks to his charm, ability, and a body type that wasn't like most other wrestlers of his era. Dusty's everyman body only added to his appeal, and his bionic elbow is an iconic move still used by many, including his sons Cody and Dustin today. His rise to prominence included feuds with the likes of Terry Funk, Harley Race, and of course Ric Flair. No account of Rhodes' wrestling career would be worth its salt without featuring his legendary Hard Times promo, but real-life Hard Times would also be a focus of a Rhodes Chronicle. Dusty fell on some after his second WCW run, agreeing to shoot local car dealership commercials and pawning personal items just to pay the bills. When Paul Heyman and ECW came calling, Dusty resurrected his career to a certain extent, eventually starting Turnbuckle Pro Wrestling and toiling through the independent circuit before landing back in WWE, where eventually he would become a trainer in NXT. He's heralded to this day as one of the most influential forces behind a long list of today's biggest superstars, not just in WWE, but across the international wrestling landscape. That's the real American dream, isn't it? A film about the life of the late, great Windham Rotunda, known to WWE fans as Bray Wyatt, would likely be a draw all on its own, but his story begins long before his career, with his family heritage.
No matter what accolade, what thing I did great, the first paragraph was about everyone else in my family that was not me and all the things they had done.
WWE Hall of Famer Robert Windham wrestled under the name Blackjack Mulligan. He was one of the nastiest wrestling villains in history and the patriarch of the Windham/Rotunda family of wrestling. Wyatt often attributed many of his mannerisms and in-ring abilities to Mulligan, his maternal grandfather. And, of course, his first name was his granddad's last. Mike Rotunda, who portrayed IRS in WWE, among other characters, is Wyatt's father and the son-in-law of Mulligan. Rotunda's other son, Taylor, is known to WWE fans as Bo Dallas, and more recently, Uncle Howdy. Barry and Kendall Windham are Mulligan's sons, and uncles to Windham and Taylor. This family story largely tells itself on the grounds of a long-standing pedigree, but given Wyatt's death in 2023, his overall popularity with fans, and the legacy that he leaves behind based on his body of work, a film could easily begin with the backstory and pivot to focus heavily on Windham Rotunda. Brock Lesnar's list of accomplishments is astonishing. National Junior College Heavyweight Wrestling Champion and two-time All-American, NCAA Division I Heavyweight Champion, two-time Big Ten Conference Champion, two-time All-American, seven-time WWE Champion, three-time WWE Universal Champion, two-time Royal Rumble winner, youngest WWE Champion in history, IWGP Heavyweight Champion, UFC Heavyweight Champion. And in 2004, he left WWE to pursue a career in the National Football League. Having not played since high school, he only barely missed the cut for the Minnesota Vikings. Though it's far from over, Lesnar's story is perfect for a movie. The only problem might well be getting Lesnar, a very private person by most accounts, to agree to such a project. And when he tells you no, good luck getting him to change his mind. The next big thing debuted in WWE in March 2002, won King of the Ring in June, and became WWE Undisputed Champion by August, forcing the eyes of wrestling fans everywhere to lock in on Lesnar. They haven't turned away since. Despite his several lengthy departures, fans have always jumped out of their seats when Lesnar shows back up in WWE. He's as consistent of a draw as the company has ever seen. Seems like he could do the same for a film. Mick Foley did something incredibly unique. He debuted the wrestling character of his youth, Dude Love, on WWE television in 1997. Of course, that was after Mankind was already an established on-screen star, and before he resurrected Cactus Jack in WWE after years of prominence in WCW, ECW, in Japan, and elsewhere. He memorably had all three personas participate in the same Royal Rumble in 1998. He held the WWE World Championship 3 times and was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2013. A middle-class Long Island boy who didn't look the part by any stretch, but who did whatever it took to get noticed and had more heart than most, makes for a tale worth telling. Perhaps it was Foley's ever-present penchant for adapting his characters that took his career as far as it did. With Mankind, Foley took a once vicious and sadistic heel character and introduced a comedic side. Fans grew to love him and Mr. Socko, a sock he started putting on his hand just before applying the mandible claw finishing maneuver. Since retiring from in-ring action, Foley has consistently shown his heart and talent outside the ring, authoring 11 books and going on speaking tours. He's gotten involved in several charities, mostly focusing on benefiting underprivileged children.
What a nice guy. He gave the little kids toys and everything inside them, so he's a really sweet guy.
While hardcore wrestling fans quickly took to proclaiming Foley as God, the man himself would much prefer to be remembered by the title of one of his books, Foley is Good. The Iron Claw regrettably had to cut some family members from its story for time reasons, and any film about the massive Hart wrestling family would probably have to do the same. But it's still a story worth telling. Patriarch Stu Hart was the man behind the infamous Hart Family Dungeon. He founded Stampede Wrestling, which produced many future WWE superstars. All of Stu's 8 sons, Smith, Bruce, Keith, Wayne, Dean, Brett, Ross, and Owen, wrestled professionally in some capacity, while all 4 daughters, Ellie, Georgia, Allison, and Diana, married wrestlers. From there, the wrestling lineage only deepens with grandchildren Natalya Neidhart, Harry Smith, and Teddy Hart, as well as Natalya's husband, Tyson Kidd. There are also the unofficial relatives who claimed ties to the family too, like Dynamite Kid, Roddy Piper, and Brian Pillman. Stu, Brett, and Jim Neidhart, who married Stu's daughter Ellie, are WWE Hall of Famers. The Harts' former family home, known as Hart House, is protected as a heritage site by the city of Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Trimming the Hart roster for any cinematic entity would be difficult, but one name that cannot be overlooked is Owen, whose life was cut tragically short in May 1999 in a stunt gone wrong at WWE's Over the Edge pay-per-view. Macho Man Randy Savage was a bigger-than-life personality that transcended professional wrestling, but he came from a family with exceptional wrestling pedigree as well. Savage's father was legendary wrestler and promoter Angelo Poffo, and his younger brother Lanny was known as both Leaping Lanny Poffo and the Genius. Randy was a star baseball catcher in high school. He signed with the St. Louis Cardinals, playing 4 seasons for the Cardinals and Cincinnati Reds' minor league affiliates. Savage suffered a shoulder injury to his throwing arm and taught himself to throw left-handed instead. But in 1974, having not risen above A-level baseball, Savage decided it was time to move on to a new career, pursuing pro wrestling. Savage's first wrestling gimmick was under a mask as the Spider. Years later, he would have a memorable cameo in 2002's Spider-Man as wrestler Bonesaw McGraw. Savage also made various television appearances, was a spokesperson for Slim Jim, and even put out a rap album in 2003. Savage held the WWE World Championship twice, the WCW World Championship 4 times, and arguably had the greatest match of all time against Ricky Steamboat at WrestleMania 3. And who could forget his on-screen love story for the ages with Miss Elizabeth, who he would eventually marry, though that marriage would come to an end after a few years. In 2011, when Savage was 58 years old, he suffered a fatal heart attack while driving and crashed into a tree in Seminole, Florida. In 2014, he was posthumously inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame by longtime frenemy Hulk Hogan, with his brother Lanny accepting the honor on his behalf. There's more than plenty in Savage's eventful life to adapt for the big screen. For nearly 40 years, Terry Hulk Hogan Bollea has been a household name. Love him or hate him, people know him, and his stature in the world of wrestling can't be denied. Hogan's story is worth telling, from his start as a bass player in Tampa, Florida area rock bands in the mid-1970s, to being the centerpiece of the then WWF's rise to pop culture, which coincided with the overall growth in the wrestling industry away from its carnival sideshow origins. Hogan's wrestling career got off to a shaky start when, after being discovered by Jack and Gerald Briscoe, he went on to train with Japanese legend Hiro Matsuda, who, according to Hogan, intentionally broke his leg. Hogan continued to train with Matsuda and eventually was off to the races. Following a short stint in WWE as a heel and runs in New Japan and the AWA, Hogan returned to WWE and defeated the Iron Sheik for the Heavyweight Championship on January 23, 1984. Commentator Gorilla Monsoon proclaimed, "Hulkamania is here." Legendary rivalries with Rowdy Roddy Piper, Andre the Giant, and so many more highlighted Hogan's time on top in WWE. By the mid-1990s, Hogan jumped to rival WCW and began the second act of his career with the formation of the NWO alongside Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. As legendary as he was a babyface, he matched or topped that as a mega heel, terrorizing WCW with his NWO cronies. Hogan returned to WWE with the original NWO in 2002, just in time for an all-time classic against The Rock at WrestleMania 18, where his return to Hulkamania began. Hogan is a 2-time WWE Hall of Famer, inducted on his own in 2005 and as part of the NWO in 2020. A biopic on Hogan was said to be in the works as recently as 2023, though delays have persisted.
It was there.
Yeah.
It was there, and I just went, whoa. But all of a sudden, there was a business glitch.
Stone Cold Steve Austin's story is well chronicled, with biographies or documentaries coming out often. But to put a story on the silver screen would make for pure entertainment. It could detail his rise in WCW as stunning Steve Austin and with Brian Pillman and the Hollywood Blondes, as well as a United States Championship run. It could then move on to his decline, bottoming out when he was fired via fax by Eric Bischoff while rehabbing a torn tricep suffered during a tour of Japan. From there, Austin's former manager, Paul Heyman, now heading up ECW, gave Austin a short-term deal to come in and largely do interviews and cut promos. Austin began to cultivate what would become his legendary Stone Cold persona in WWE, despite only having 2 in-ring appearances in his less than 4 months in ECW. Beginning in WWE as the ringmaster, a protege of Million Dollar Man Ted DiBiase, Austin shed that gimmick in short order, winning the King of the Ring tournament just over 6 months later, defeating Jake the Snake Roberts, and cutting the game-changing Austin 316 promo. The feud of all feuds, Austin vs. Vince McMahon, would kick off the Attitude Era, uniting clock punchers across the world who lived vicariously through the Texas Rattlesnake, wishing they could gut-kick their boss and drop them face-first to the floor with a stunner of their own. Though his career was cut short due to numerous injuries, most notably a broken neck suffered at the hands of Owen Hart at SummerSlam in 1997, Austin's accolades are numerous. A 6-time WWE World Championship and Grand Slam winner, the only 3-time Royal Rumble winner, and a 2009 inductee into the WWE Hall of Fame. And he's still stomping mud holes, as evidenced by his WrestleMania 38 walloping of Kevin Owens, Austin Theory, Vince McMahon, and Pat McAfee.
I'm doing this for me. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to have a damn blast.
The head of the table isn't just a gimmick that WWE concocted. Roman Reigns is the current most prominent active wrestler in a family whose legacy stretches back decades. The Anoa'i family is one of the most prestigious, glorified, and renowned lineages in the history of professional wrestling. Young Rock may have covered some of this already, but we want the whole thing. If you thought the Von Erichs, Windhams, and Harts were a lot to take in, behold a family wrestling tale for the ages. High Chief Peter Maivia and Reverend Anoa'i were brothers, and the latter's sons are known to wrestling fans as Afa and Sika of the Wild Samoans. Sika's sons are Joe Anoa'i, known in WWE as Roman Reigns, and the late Matthew Anoa'i, who wrestled as Rosie. Afa is father to both Samula Anoa'i, who wrestled as Samu, and Afa Anoa'i Jr., known to wrestling fans as Manu. The late Rodney Anoa'i, who portrayed Yokozuna, was a first cousin. Edward Fatu, who wrestled as Umaga, Samuel Fatu, aka the Tonga Kid, and Solofa Fatu Jr., who WWE fans known as Rikishi, are also first cousins. Maivia's adopted daughter, Ata, married Rocky Solomon Johnson. They had a son named Dwayne, who would go on to be The Rock. He and then wife Danny Garcia brought along Simone Johnson, who wrestles in NXT as Ava Raine. Rikishi's sons include Jonathan and Joshua Fatu, who wrestle as Jimmy and Jay Uso, and Joseph Fatu, aka Solo Sikoa. We've only scratched the surface. Other members of the family include Nia Jax, Deuce, Tamina, LA Smooth, Sean Maluta, Lance Anoa'i, Jacob Fatu, and Zilla Fatu. It might take a whole movie just to get through the family tree. With a wrestling career spanning more than 50 years, controversy to spare, more than one near-death experience, and having reached the pinnacle of the wrestling business everywhere he's been, Ric Flair's life and career could probably carry multiple movies. Flair is recognized by WWE as a 16-time champion across the NWA, WCW, and WWE, though he might tell you that number is as high as 20-something. He was also the first two-time Hall of Fame inductee, once on his own and again with the Four Horsemen. But of all of his accolades, of all of his legendary rivalries, Harley Race, Ricky Steamboat, Dusty Rhodes, Sting, and more, perhaps what shines most about Flair is the fact that he long ago transcended wrestling, becoming a pop culture icon. Ric Flair drip is a thing. He still appears in rap videos, commercials, even on AEW television, where his Woo energy drink is a sponsor, and also promotes Woo Wings at multiple restaurant locations across the country.
Wings! Legendary flavors! World Championship wings!
What hasn't Flair done? Maybe it would take a The Crown-style multi-season TV series to chronicle the life of the stylin', profilin', limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheelin' dealin' son of a gun.